right, thank you, George Harrison. We're playing you today because it's 50 years since the album All Things Must Pass was released. It was kind of significant at the time, and that's kind of my favorite song off of it. I do like some others better, but different albums. So, from Chicago, here we are. Thank you for joining us. Welcome all sisters and brothers, family, friends, and neighbors, and citizens of the world to another edition of Live from the Heartland, now being called Heartland at Home. As you can see, we're on Zoom, and this is the 63rd edition of Heartland at Home for the week of August 7th. Today, we're welcoming election law activist and guru in training, Ed Mullen. We're also welcoming Michael Helen Wood and Olivia Chase of the Injustice for All Film Festival International, and our faithful Olympics correspondent, Gordon Thomson, will bring us through to the end of the Olympics. Good morning, Michael. How you doing there?
Good morning to you, Katie.
Sling?
I got my arm in a sling. Yeah, I had the operation after we recorded the last show. It's been a week. I don't have any more pain. I'm getting a lot of attention. I'm watching a lot of Olympics. It's a little hard doing things with no hand. I got to keep this thing strapped to my body for the next 6 weeks. So we will keep you posted week by week. And but I'm good enough to keep going and doing the show. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here, Michael. I know that you should actually have had the week off, but we've got a packed show. So we're not going to talk to you today about the Nigerian fisherwoman who are chasing on Chevron for messing with the environment. We will, though. And we're not going to talk about the Indigenous People Day Coalition. We will, though, next week when we're not as busy. But today, let's just remind people that you're going to hear a new phrase a lot: proof of vaccination, and how to have it. This week, President Biden actually told people what leadership looks like in vis-a-vis the vaccination program, asking states to please, governors of states to please at least get out of the way if they can't help. And he was talking to Texas and Florida, who are trying to pass anti-mask mandate laws.
Well, a little bit following up on that, I did see a piece in the Washington Post by a fellow named Greg Sargent. It was an opinion piece. And he basically, off of that, said the Democrats should continue to get more aggressive in criticizing the Republicans. And they talked about three things: creating conflict around the virus, how they are portraying the insurrection, from originally saying after it happened that it was terrible and bad and Trump played a role, to now trying to deny that, and continuing to sow disruption around the outcome of the election. It's a good piece. It was a couple of days ago, Greg Sargent in the Washington Post.
Well, this is the week, folks, in case you haven't been keeping up with it. And I got to credit Indivisible, which comes into my email box regularly. This is the day, today and tomorrow, and everything up until August 9th, I believe, to call your senators, say thank you for the good job you're doing, Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, and we must have the For the People Act. For the People Act, also known as the John Lewis Act, which will set national standards that protect the vote in all federal elections. Folks are being arrested in DC for this, doing civil disobedience for this. The Texan lawmakers who left their state rather than be forced to vote on some of these voter suppression tactics are in DC also pleading with the Senate to pass the For the People Act. This is one of those moments, folks. Which side are you on?
Okay, I'm going to call my senators, Katie. I promise.
Okay, I'll keep with you.
We're going to take a little short break. We want to thank you for listening to Live from the Heartland here on 88.7 WLUW.org worldwide. And we'll be right back with our first guest, Ed Mullen, talking about the Illinois Supreme Court. Hey, Ed Mullen, it's great to have you here. We understand that you've been traveling around the great state of Illinois, sounding the alarm and waking folks up about the important, but often overlooked by the voters, races for the Illinois Supreme Court. Tell us what's going on and why we need to start paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. In Illinois, we elect judges, and judges tend to be at the bottom of the ballot, and they get a lot less attention, and there's a lot of voter drop off. So people know who they're going to vote for president or congressperson or governor, but then when they get to the bottom of the ballot and they see the judges, they don't recognize the names and they don't pay as much attention. And in addition to that, the Republicans do pay attention more than the Democrats pay attention to the judges, and they use judicial races to bring out people for other races, and they use judicial races to win in places where they shouldn't win because the voter turnout is low. So I think the Democrats have done a very poor job over the years of using the courts as part of the electoral strategy.
So when you do this barnstorming that you described to me that you are doing around the state, what in your experience are the best methods to get voters to pay attention and learn about the races that they might otherwise overlook?
Well, I think we have an Illinois Supreme Court race that has an opportunity to get more attention than some of the typical judicial races. But one of the things that I've done over the years has been on the board of the Judicial Accountability PAC. And one of the things we did was the Dump Coughlin campaign a couple of years ago, which was one of the first races where a candidate was not retained for Cook County Circuit Court judge in decades. And the reason that I think that campaign was so successful is that there was a really easy story to tell about the importance of that race and the racial disparities of what that judge had done as a judge. And I think with this Illinois Supreme Court, we can tell the same types of stories because we have a Supreme Court that is currently 4-3 Democratic. And the problem is that the 3 Democratic seats in Cook County are solid Democratic seats. There are 2 counties or 2 districts outside of Cook County that are solid Republican seats. And there are 2 districts that are swing districts. So we could wind up with a 5-3, 5-2 Democratic court, or we could wind up with a 4-3 Democratic court, or we could wind up with a 4-3 Republican court. And if we wind up with a 4-3 Republican court, they're going to be making decisions about the recent criminal justice bill that was passed and how that's interpreted, about the pro-abortion law that was passed 2 or 3 years ago and how that's going to be interpreted in the state if the Supreme Court makes changes to Roe v. Wade that's before it right now. So there's a lot of stories that you can tell about the importance of what the Supreme Court in Illinois is going to be doing to people on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's going to help bring people out because it affects their lives. It's not something abstract.
Do we know yet who the candidates are and how they're looking, or is that yet to be? I know it's a ways away, but
the candidates are starting to announce. So there are 2 districts that are open right now. There's the 2nd district, which is Lake, Kane, McHenry, DeKalb, and Kendall. And as far as I'm aware, there are 3 candidates that are exploring or announced and possibly a 4th candidate. And then in the 3rd district, which is DuPage and Will and Kankakee and a few other western counties, there are 2 announced Democratic candidates that I'm aware of. And both of those candidates are very strong. They are an appellate court justice and a sitting Kane court judge and very strong candidates. In the 2nd district, Mayor Nancy Rotering has filed paperwork to run, and she's a strong progressive. And then there are 2 sitting judges, one in Lake County and one in Kane County, who have announced that they're running as well in that district. So there are some candidates that have announced because the primary was moved from March to June. I think the timing of when people have to announce has been changed a little. So there is still time for people to get in the race. But in terms of fundraising and endorsements and campaign support, I think, September, maybe October is probably the realistic time for candidates to get into the race.
Ed, what does it tell us that the Democrats won the presidency in 2020, did really well here in Illinois? Other Democratic candidates did well, but at the top of the ballot was the Fair Tax Amendment, graduated income tax, which we all were working very solidly for. And in the 49th Ward, we had the highest turnout for that or percentage of the vote for that. What does it tell you, though, that it tell us that we lost the fair tax amendment, and how that will relate to the
I think
Supreme
the first thing, it tells us is that Republicans are going to spend a lot of money on these races like they did on the fair tax amendment, because it's the same types of issues that are important to them. And so they're going to spend a lot of money on these races. And so the opposition is going to need to be very well organized and have strong messaging, as well as raising money. The fair tax was not actually at the top of the ballot. It was sort of in a weird place, depending on where you were in the county. So there was actually some counties where it was very difficult to find and to understand that the fair tax amendment was actually on the ballot. And there were some organizing concerns around that based on how certain counties organized their ballot. But here it is going to be at the bottom of the ballot. And that means that, I mean, not way at the bottom of the ballot, but after the federal and General Assembly offices. So it's going to be important to educate people on the importance of this race and who the candidates are. And I think you're right that the Fair Tax Amendment says something about how, even though we are a Democratic state, we're not necessarily liberal and progressive outside of Cook County. And so we have to be aware of that in both our strategy and looking at who the candidates are going to be.
I looked at the maps, the redrawn maps, and I am something of an election professional myself, and the whole lineup of courts, circuit courts, district courts, and how the population needs to be equalized in order to have the Supreme Court districts. Am I right about that? They try to.
The population, you've got this idea of one person, one vote in most electoral systems. But with judges, it's a little bit different because the building block is not a block. So if I'm drawing an aldermanic map or I'm drawing a state representative map, I literally am drawing that block by block, and I can take a precinct and I can move it. I can take a block and I can move it. But in your Illinois Supreme Court, your building block is the circuit court. So you've got the Circuit Court of Cook County as one of your building blocks. So it gives you a lot less flexibility in terms of how you build a Supreme Court district. But what it also does is it means that they're not going to be as equal as an aldermanic map because your building blocks are not equal. So the need for it to be exactly 1-to-1-to-1 is not the same as it is with a General Assembly map or an aldermanic map. So there's a little more flexibility in terms of the size of the districts, but in terms of the building blocks, you can't split up, for instance, the Lake County into two, because Lake County is one circuit court district, and you've got to have the Supreme Court over a circuit court district.
You've gotten very good at explaining that to the unenlightened, the uneducated about the very confusing thing. Let me ask you one other question before we let you go. What has been the lawyers and court professionals' reactions to doing court by Zoom this whole past year and a half in Cook County, and how varied district to district is the practice of virtual proceedings? Has everyone been like our courts here?
Everything has been remote for the past year and a half, and there has been some in-person proceedings, particularly when you're talking about criminal trials. They've been trying to bring those in order to comply with the speedy trial mandates, but even those have really been delayed. And I think from the lawyer's perspective, things like status conferences, case management conferences, and basic motion practice, doing that over Zoom is very convenient. You don't have to get in your car and drive to the courthouse and go through security and sit and wait. You just get on the Zoom call when you need to, and it saves you time, it saves your client money, and it works really well. Where it's difficult is with things like depositions, where you want to be looking at the person's reactions, you want to be showing them exhibits and documents, or when you have a witness that you're trying to question in a courtroom setting, it's much more difficult to do that over Zoom. So I think you're going to find that those things will be continued in person, and smaller things will continue to be by Zoom. And I think it's provided a lot of convenience, not only for the lawyers, but it's given clients more access to lawyers because they have more time and they don't have to bill as much for small court hearings.
Ed, before we go, pretend that I'm someone that you're trying to talk to convince to pay attention to the Supreme Court. What do you tell me? What do you say about the Illinois Supreme Court and what it does and what's coming up that needs to be paid attention to?
Right. So there's a 10-year term for Supreme Court justices. So this is a 10-year mistake if we mess it up. We're talking about the balance of power. So you think about how much we spent on Georgia's Senate races to make sure that Senate was in Democratic hands. This is the same type of situation where we've got to put all of those resources and energy into that race, even if it might not be our district, because we're talking about the balance of power. The Supreme Court justices appoint circuit court and appellate court vacancies. So they are setting up who the people who are going to be on the bench in the future are. So things like diversity and progressive values are really important in appointing new judges. They issue the Supreme Court rules. So when you talk about the criminal rules or pro se rules for people who are representing themselves and the ability of people to get into court, the Supreme Court doesn't just rule on cases, they set up the rules for the entire system. So there's a lot more that Supreme Court judges do than I think people really understand. And you've got to look at the whole package of what a Supreme Court justice does when you're talking about this election, because there's so much more than just saying, okay, they're going to decide on, some cases every year. They have control over, they have a lot of control over the entire legal system in the state of Illinois, and their influence is much broader than just deciding, and deciding cases is really important, but their influence is much broader than that. And I think talking about the personal impact on people, if you're a landlord-tenant issue, if you've got a criminal justice issue, whatever, this affects you. And everyone goes to court sometime, they get divorced, they file bankruptcy, whatever it is, you're going to wind up in court at some point in your lifetime. And you want to make sure that that system is working for you and not against you.
Ed Mullen, you are definitely the election law guru. We will come back to you as this very important election year unfurls. So stay healthy, stay strong. Thank you so much for this.
All right, thank you guys. It was good to see both of you.
We'll see you again. Peace
Take
out.
care.
Okay, we're going to be right back with our next guests. We're going to listen to a little bit of I've Got the Power by Snap, and we'll be back with Michael Helen Woods and Olivia Chase talking about the Injustice for All Film Festival International. Stay tuned.
All right. Yes, thank you for choosing that song. Michael Helen Woods, welcome to Live from the Heartland. And Olivia Chase, welcome to Live from the Heartland.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
All right, let's kick it off, Michael.
Well, this question's for Olivia, and Trinity United Church and something called the Next Movement appear to be important partners in this festival. Can you elaborate on the roots of the fest? How did it come to be? What made it happen? Give us the details.
I'd love to. So, Michael, you already know that I love to do backstory, right? You asked. So, Trinity United Church of Christ, of course, on Chicago's South Side, has a storied history as a faith community with a strong social justice bent. In December of 2010, Michelle Alexander came to Trinity to do a talk about her new book, which is now a classic, The New Jim Crow. So we had this amazing conversation with Professor Alexander, and within 10 days, Daryl Brown, who is a longtime member of Trinity's prison ministry, put together a convening of people from all over the city, all kinds of folks. It was an amazing group of about 100 people showed up. justice advocates, people, prison abolitionists, and people who wanted to get on board with how can we chip away at this monstrous thing, this mass incarceration. So 10 days, 100 people, and we formed a committee, a special committee of Trinity's prison ministry, and we called it the Next Movement. So we were gathering supporters, but really working hard to, we were working in coalition with other groups across the city, but trying to figure out how do we win hearts and minds? How do we educate or re-educate people? And that takes us into Curly Cohen. You may know Curly.
Oh, we know Curly.
Are you kidding?
What can I say?
Are you kidding?
Well, he's
Nothing more to say.
Long live Curly.
then okay. I'm speaking. I'm preaching to the choir here.
You are.
You know, he is a
Wow.
powerful ancestor now, and we can feel that power, right? So Curly joined the Next Movement. You know, I don't recall exactly how. We're thinking someone from our prison ministry had connection with Curly with the work the prison ministry was doing inside, because prison ministry not only does letters, but they go inside, you know. So
Curly is a movie guy.
there you,
Totally.
you know.
I
So
know.
he's coming to the meetings, he's engaged in what we're doing, and we're sitting around one Saturday in October of 2013, and we're trying to figure out how to bring more people to the table, how to bring more people to this movement. And Curly stops the meeting by saying, let's have a film festival. Well,
I so love this connection. I can't tell you.
yeah, and he was a film guy. You know that. We hadn't met Peter yet, Peter Kuttner, but that took us into this foray of doing the Injustice for All Film Festival. So that's the connection, the full arc. Michael, have I left out anything? Now we're into our 7th iteration. This year is our 7th iteration, and at the point that Curly became an ancestor that year, I think it was 2017, we named the fan favorite award for Curly in his honor. And we're going to pay special tribute to him this year.
Oh.
What have I left out, Michael?
Hey, I don't think you've left out anything. It's a perfect segue. And so you guys want me to continue the story about the present, or did you have a specific question?
Well, we were wondering in the 7 years, it's probably more years than that now, but in all of your film festivals, did you have, some big moments, movies given their first or at minimum impactful platform here through you guys? Any of those kind of breakthrough moments for films or for filmmakers? You understand?
Olivia, did you want to speak to that, or?
Well, two that stand out for me. One is the festival's capacity to honor young filmmakers, and particularly young Chicagoans. And I'm thinking specifically of Quinn Riley. This is a perfect arc. She's a young poet, young activist, part of BYP 100, Asada's Daughters, and you know the groups, the young folks out, doing it right now. She is also a filmmaker, and we linked her up with an amazing returning citizen who has become quite the activist. And they did a little film together, and I'll never forget that. It was a powerful experience for both of them.
Tell us her name again. Quinn what?
Quinn Riley. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about her, but to Olivia's point, the one that stands out for me, and Olivia has been involved with the festival from its beginning. I've been just with the last 4 years, but the film that I really think was amazing was called Sizing Barbara Sizemore. I think that was the name of it. And it dealt with a charter school on the south side of Chicago, a documentary film, and they were up for recertification. And it kind of showed the ins and outs of the school, how their whole their school culture, their enthusiasm for what they did, the commitment that the teachers and the other administrators had. And I just thought that was a phenomenal film. I think generally there are a number of films in this year's festival and in previous festivals that have been Chicago centric or Chicago focused. And those, because we are, in Chicago, they have a special place in our heart, so to speak. But make no mistake, the festival this year, and actually in years past, is an international festival. We have got entries from around the world. And that's what makes it kind of exciting, because to Olivia's point, when she was talking about how do we build more of a movement? How do we get people better, understanding about the direness of mass incarceration? And by the way, the rate of mass incarceration in the United States is the highest in the world. Yeah. That is something that Isabel Wilkerson. Sorry, we should be. And Isabel Wilkerson points that out in her book Cast. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the point of it is we as a organization are committed to the whole idea of absolving mass incarceration, what that means. And so a lot of the films deal with mass incarceration, or they deal with the criminal justice system and other human issues that relates to us as humanity. Crimes against humanity is what I meant to say. Mm-hmm. So that is, she gave a perfect segue, but I did want to speed up a little bit to give you a better understanding of where we are. The festival itself will take place August 12th through 21st of this year. The festival is free, and for the first time, it's 100% virtual. Part of this was because of the COVID, and we just decided to make it that way. And so we partnered with Eventive, which is a virtual film platform. And so the festival is locked and loaded and ready to go during those days. A viewer just has to go to our website and order tickets. Again, it is free. So I can't stress that enough. Our website would be www.injusticeforallff.com. So I just wanted to make sure, and it is open now for ticket ordering. So I didn't want to say that.
Go ahead.
The other thing I wanted to say is it's a little bit more, this is the cool thing about the festival. It's a little bit more than just showing films. I mean, films is important, don't get me wrong, because we've got 27 films. We are showing 13 shorts and then 14 full features. But we've also woven in 6 poets who will be doing spoken word on the particular topics at hand. And to Olivia's point, that does include Quinn Riley, who's a phenomenal poet in Chicago, well known in Chicago. It includes Gertie Jessica Mascarenas, another well-known poet. And believe it or not, it includes our senior pastor, Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, who actually goes by the pen name, if you will, OM3. So, I mean, that's what's kind of cool about that.
Hallelujah.
and additionally, the festival itself will also have what we would call like panel discussions, Zoom panel discussions. So in theory, it is the films, it is the poets, it is the panel discussions on a variety of topics, from prison reform to paths to a racism-free society, to domestic violence. And I was going to ask Olivia to talk about one of the panels that she's knee deep in, which is organizing across differences, restorative justice. So these are woven into, and it's really 8 panels, that also complement the festival itself. And so if Olivia wanted to speak about the one that she's working on, that would be great.
Oh, I'm excited to talk about that one. That's right in my wheelhouse. Celebrates the set apart organizing work back in the late 60s. Chairman Fred Hampton, that powerful ancestor, the work that the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party did with the Young Patriots, the Young Lords. I think I got one of those names wrong, but we've got. I'm sorry.
You got them both right.
Okay, so we're celebrating that work with 3 films. 2 films are Peter's from the archive, amazing shorts, and one is it the original Rainbow Coalition or the first Rainbow Coalition?
It's called the
first. I think it's called the first Rainbow Coalition, or as we're presenting it.
Yes.
By Ray Stanton-Esteban.
Yes, absolutely. Fabulous film. But we've got Billy Che Brooks from the Black Panther Party. We've got Sheila McNary from the party. We've got Omar Lopez from the Young Lords. We don't have anyone from the Young Patriots, but we also have Helen Schiller joining that conversation. And we've got 2 fabulous young activists, Damon Williams, who's just done all kinds of work, part of a number of groups, and of course, Quinn Riley, who's also a young activist, both of them boots on the ground, young folks. So we're going to have this intergenerational conversation. We want to invite the community in so we can all talk about that powerful work and the legacy, what was left behind that laid the foundation for some lasting change in our city of Chicago.
And,
Michael?
and sorry, go ahead.
Well, Michael, I was going to ask you about when the festival wasn't virtual, what venues hosted the films, and it may be too early, but your take on the positives and negatives of an entirely virtual festival.
I could say what makes it, I'm going to start with your last question. I actually, the idea of a virtual festival, which we thought was something we had to do out of necessity, has actually turned out to be a blessing because we've got, again, people are beginning to sign up from all across the country, which quite honestly just blew me away. I mean, we've got people signing up left and right, and we've actually asked for donations this year too. So we're beginning to get ahead of ourselves. So the concept of we wanted to do something that would build up advocacy, build up understanding about these issues is growing. So that's the benefit of it being virtual. Now, to your point, when we didn't have it virtual and all of the venues were in Chicago and they were across the city of Chicago, at times, with some years, we would have something like 30 venues. And we would, and we would show the films in multiple locations. So the actual feeling, sharing, energy of the room in that regard is probably a con that we don't have this year. Sure. But I think, it's like, to your point, Michael, it's pros and cons on both sides. What I did want to say, and let's not forget this about the festival, it is a competition. So even with the filmmakers, there is prizing, the judges have ruled, so to speak, and that's on the last day of the festival. So, we're all staying tuned to figure out who that is. And of course, as Olivia mentioned, the highlight of it is the Curly Cohen Fan Favorite Award, which the viewers, that's beautiful, the viewers, the audience of the festival, they're the ones who vote on what their favorite film is. The most popular film is named for him. So, I mean, I didn't want people to lose sight of that particular factor.
Let me ask another question quickly. What do you think it's really going to take to change the way we do mass incarceration? I mean, a film festival is a start. What kind of organizing, what kind of a, just how people perceive it. I mean, locking people in cages clearly that hasn't worked. And it's a big deal. It takes a lot of money. It destroys a lot of lives. And the broader, on the spectrum, what do you think we have to do?
Olivia, were you going to comment?
Well, I'm just going to say a couple of things. So I'm preaching to the choir here, Michael and Katie. I know you know this.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
This is capitalism. This is racial capitalism that underlies all of this, this mass incarceration piece. Again, using primarily Black and brown bodies for profit. That's one thing. The other thing is we have to continue the struggle, but we've got to bring more people into this, which is why we're doing the film festival. Okay, why we chose to do this. We've got to shift more hearts and minds. I'm feeling that we've kind of hit a point where more people they get it.
They're paying attention.
And we've had some victories. The End Money Bail Coalition. Yes. Look at that. We were a part of that, along with a bunch of other groups. But it's slow, steady work. It doesn't happen like that. But we've got to bring more people into the struggle, I think. And that's kind of my thought. I don't have any big, brilliant answer for you. We just got to keep chipping away at it.
Yeah, that was perfect. And, you're absolutely right. During the last election, the amount of people that chipped in to pay people's fines in Florida so that they could actually get a ballot to vote. Yes. Was an amazing, wonderful show of how much consciousness has been raised thanks to the sister who wrote the new Jim Crow and yes. everything that has happened since then. We're going to have to go because we have one last guest, but can I just mention you have a great website, by the way, really good website and an impressive list of sponsors, with sponsors being so necessary to events supporting the arts usually. How does a group stay available and supportive and close to the grassroots organizers while simultaneously trying to get next to some money people and be an ever greater force in the art world?
I would just say it's like-minded souls, so to speak, because I know if we talk about like Euclid Methodist Church, Episcopal Church as an example, I mean, they've been involved with us as a sponsor, and Olivia knows because she's been the one who's been kind of like the point person for them. But it is like-minded, and that, Michael, speaks to what you were saying. There are a number of people are beginning to awaken and recognize the human injustices of the United States. And so seeking out, searching those folks who are like-minded and are willing to donate. And sometimes, a donation is good. I don't necessarily have to have you like boots on the ground all the time. We got people who do that and this. It's just being able to access all of the talents that we have for a common good. So I think that's how we kind of like take what we can from people that really support our efforts.
Michael, Olivia, can't thank you enough for coming.
Oh, thank you.
It's been wonderful.
Wonderful.
We're going to look forward to meeting you in person.
Everyone
absolutely
needs to go to your website and look at Injustice for All Film Festival International and sign up.
Yes. And just if we got enough time, again, the website, www.injusticeforallff.com.
Right on.
Peace and blessings, sisters.
Ashe.
Same to you.
Bye-bye.
And we are back with a wrap up on the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. And thanks to Gordon Thomson. Welcome back, Gordo. We've been thinking about you as we watch the Olympics. I didn't catch this whole story yesterday, so I'm just going to start off with, I saw some bad vibes from the 4 male runners in the relay in their post-race interview. Can you tell me what happened? I missed it totally.
Yeah, Katie. Hey, Chicago. I'm wearing my Chile Olympic shirt that I got from the Pan American Championships. An athlete was able to scan that for. Now I get a little closer. Katie, you're talking about the men's 4x100 relay. And yes, there were a lot of bad vibes because once again, the USA screwed up the handoffs. We've got amongst the 4 or 5 best sprinters in the world, but the 4x100 relay requires that you have good handoffs. It's not necessarily the 4 fastest guys, it's the 3 best stick passes that ensures the winner. So once again, the US did not practice like they should have, and they let their egos get in the way with all the managers, individual coaches saying, my guy's got to be on this team. When the pool is 6 people, they can select from 6. So instead of I'm just guessing, the US coaches just said, screw it. With all these managers, we're only going to have 1 or 2 practices and we'll let it lie. So they didn't practice much and they screwed up from the handoff from the 1 to 2 guy.
One of the commentators said something about how the other teams run together a lot more and practice a lot more. And this has happened to the U.S. before. And Carl Lewis, I think today or on Thursday when we're recording, he basically was really critical of the whole thing.
Yeah, we want to move past this 4x100 relay because it's a bad story, and it's just kind of repeating history over and over again of how USA kind of messes things up. We got to change our coaching paradigm within the US and how we select our 4x100 relay and then use those people for practice during the year. So we tried it a few years back, but I guess it went nowhere. Hey, I want to go ahead.
Give us a good story.
Hey, I got 3 or 4 feel-good stories from this Olympics, and there was a whole bunch. Michael and Katie, you remember that old song, When the Moon Hits My Eye Like a Big Pizza Pie? That's amore. So that's what I would start off. Italia, they won the high jump and the men's 100 meters. And the theatrics, the emotions of those 2 Italians, once they found they got gold, was besides themselves, especially the high jumper, the Italian high jumper, Tamberi, who really, once he found out that he was sharing the gold with Barshim, the world's God's gift to the high jump, he straddle hugged him like he wanted to date him. And it was just like, holy schmoly, what's going on here? Can we have some decorum? It was unbelievable, just great show of pure emotion and joy and happiness. And hats off. And then when Tamberi had his gold in pocket, there 15 minutes later, there comes Jacobs, who was born in Texas, El Paso. Here comes Jacobs to win the 100 meters for Italy. And then Tamberi gets to celebrate with Jacobs on the track, and they just have an absolute joyous, fun national time. Katie, you mentioned in last show how the nationalistic of the USA chant and this and that gets really tiresome, and yes, it does. But really, when you focus, that's what this Olympics is. We represent countries. So getting involved with the countries a little bit is kind of cool, especially with the relays, but focusing on the individuals is what it's all about. And one individual I want to focus on is the Venezuelan triple jumper who just set a world record. And that woman, she really should be starting in the women's NBA, 6'4" tall, all lean muscle and sinew and full of power. This woman, Yulimar Rojas, not only just won the gold medal, she broke the world record, jumping over 51 feet for the triple jump. If there's any country in the world that needs a feel-good, it's Venezuela. Those people are way hurting. They are suffering day to day, don't know where they can get their next meal out of the grocery market. Hooray for Venezuela and Ms. Rojas. Another feel-good story is the women's 100 meters. Jamaica 1, 2, 3. Seeing those 3 Jamaican ladies just enjoy each other's presence, celebrating each other's really great job of a country sweeping. Hey, let's think about what Jamaica is. A couple of million people, an island in the Caribbean. It's not China. It's not USA. It's not even Germany or Mexico. It's like a limited space and a limited population. These people have got the greatest amount of fun in track and field. They love it. We can't have Usain Bolt anymore. So now we're going to enjoy these ladies, 1, 2, 3. And Elaine Thomson, not only just did she win the 100, but she came back and won and dusted the Americans in the 200. I'm not anti-USA. I'm pro-individual. But there is a couple of another good feel-good stories, and that's the 400-meter hurdles for both men and women. First came the men's race, a new world record. This Karsten Warholm, who looks like he's right out of Sears catalog in the underwear section. He looks bright-eyed, fresh-faced, doesn't like he's got a single whisker on his face. He goes out there and jams a world record, hitting his left lead leg all the way around and just forcing. He was not winning until the very end. The American is what made him set the new world record and made him just really push himself to the ultimate. And then the women's 400 hurdles, we had our own Sydney McLaughlin from right there in New Jersey, went to University of Kentucky, now's a pro, turned to pro after freshman year at UK. And what an unbelievable young lady, just was losing over the 10th hurdle to her teammate, Muhammad, and then just phenomenally powered through that last finish 10 or 20 meters to break the world record, win the Olympic gold, and US went 1-2 in that event. It was a phenomenal race. So the 400 hurdles was really the one event that just was magnanimous. It was unbelievably fantastic.
You got it on the shot put.
Oh my God. Yeah. USA 1-2 in the shot put. And Ryan Krauser, who won his 6 throws in the final, every one of them would have been an Olympic record. Every single throw in his 6 throws would have been an Olympic record. He has mastered that event. But one other American that's right on his heels and is really pushing him was the silver medalist, Jacobs. And he's just unbelievably tough. And his wife coaches him. So that was also a good USA story for ability for Michael to chant USA, USA, USA.
I'm the guy who does that, right?
I would say when I was coaching an international team for the Pan Am Juniors, we just swept every event, and 1, 2, 3 US in the 100, the 200, the hurdles, the long jump, the triple jump, the this and that, and it got to be, oh my God, can some other country take a medal, please? So that you just want to feel like somebody else can achieve. So when it was a little bit of over the top USA, USA chant on that trip, but yes, the world does come alive every 4 years for these Olympic Games. And the true winner is the track. This Mondo surface is a brand new surface that is embedded these granules, these 3-dimensional granules that respond to the athlete's pressure down. So it gives back more energy than it receives. That is a whole new innovation. So yeah, pretty cool.
Hey, Gordo, before we go, tell us one more time your ideas about where the Olympics should be held every 4 years.
Well, it's a no-brainer. They should be held exactly where the first one was. In 1896, the first modern Olympics was in Athens, and that's where it should be every 4 years. And then maybe a couple of events be satellited out to other cities around the world that could potentially host. It's so big that now, and with the added other events, it's a monstrosity that can't hold on to itself. So Every Olympics has lost money, every single one. Maybe Los Angeles is the only one in '84 that has been able to make money, but every single Olympics has lost money, and it leaves these white elephants of these monstrous venues up that can't be used. So yeah, that's probably good. And it's been shot around a little while. We'll see. The future of the Olympic Games is tenuous.
Hey, remember our project that we were going to work on? We were going to try to get a long jump pit built up at the Willie White Park in honor of Willie White. So stay tuned on that.
Yeah, we got to get.
We'll work on that offline. Okay.
There you go.
I like very much, and I appreciate, Gordo, your enthusiasm and your wisdom and your keeping track of all this stuff for us all. I love the Olympics. I find them inspiring. I wish that the doping and the politics and all the rest of that stuff, and it sort of does get in the second seat. By the end of the games, you're so taken with these beautiful people doing the best they can with their bodies that a lot of that just does fade.
Yep. Hey, one quick little good field story about politics. The men's fencing team, right before, there was one guy on the fencing team that wasn't allowed to train or compete with him because he was accused of a sexual offense. So when they were handing out the masks, the team captain handed out 3 pink masks to his teammates and then 1 black mask to the offender. And he had no idea it was coming. And that moment where they had 3 guys wearing the same color pink mask and the one out on his own wearing the black, that message sent a really strong deal unto itself. So way to go, fencing. Way to go, thinking ahead of the time, and way to get on top of it.
We got to go, my dear. We're out of time. That was a great story. Love you, Gordon.
Good report.
Thank you for the great report.
Peace, love, and happiness, Chicago. Go get them.
All right.
Katie, tell us about what's going on tonight.
Okay, tonight we've got a movie in the park at our own Loyola Park. It's A Wrinkle in Time, a good family show. Starts at dusk. Wear your mask. Bring a blanket. Come and see where the movies are. And they're in a lot of parks now.
In memoriam, we got a kid we knew from the time of his birth, Connor Lee. Was a 39-year-old pilot. He passed away. We are really sorry for the 2 Nancys, his mothers. Also, Elka Schumann of the Bread and Puppet Theater passed this week at 85 years old. She did great. Bread and Puppet is a great theater. And we'd like to say goodbye to St. Ignatius Parish right here in our neighborhood, who held its last mass. And that's right where Gordo used to live, right across the street.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to leave with our Twin Peaks playing Our World.
And for over 25 years, we've been glad to bring you live from the Heartland. Now, Heartland at Home. We're broadcast every Saturday morning at 9 to 10 a.m. Central on WLUW.org worldwide, 88.7 if you're close by. We're archived on youtube.com/Heartland Media, and you can find us on CAN TV and on Spotify and Google Podcasts.
Do good in the world.
All power, because the world needs all the good that we do.
All power
to the people. Next week, we'll see you. We got a good one coming up. Adios.